some may look at the tie-dye colors and cartoonish art style of Dicey Dungeons and expect a low roll on the difficulty scale. Rest assured, you'll die a good amount of times in this card system roguelike experience, which came out on August 13th, 2019 for $14.99 on the PC, both on Steam and itch.io. Needless to say, however, the dice were loaded against me from the get-go with this game, as the game's deck building and different character playstyles made me come back to the craps table over and over and over again. To say that I wasn't addicted to the game would have been the biggest lie, since Peggy's classification of NBA 2K20 not having gambling mechanics. And yes, I'm a little salty about that. Nevertheless, let's dive into the game in this critical eye review of Dicey Dungeons, and slice and dice our way through the game's strengths and weaknesses. And hopefully not have as many puns as in this first section. For the purposes of this review, I will be going through a sample run of Dicey Dungeons, but splicing in footage from other runs in order to make points about the character variety, the different scenarios, so on and so forth. When you start the game, however, you will have one character unlocked, the warrior, the basic class. But play through his scenario and be successful, you'll unlock a new character, the thief, the robot, the inventor, the witch. You have a couple of characters with all different playstyles here. For the purpose of this review, I will be focusing on the inventor because I think it does the best job of showing a little bit of the creativity of some of the gameplay while not necessarily being the most basic in terms of characters and a little bit more difficult to show you some of the higher level challenges. Each character has 6 episodes, and each of them start off with the basic episode, no enhancers of any sort. But each episode beyond that has their own unique twist to it. For the inventor, for example, she may get double equipment in certain situations, but she may also have to destroy equipment very quickly. Or the fact is she may have equipment that breaks after 4 times, or enemies are a little bit stronger. For the purpose of this review, I will be playing the bonus round, which starts with standard rules, but gets more rules as the game goes along when you get through the different levels. The story behind Dicey Dungeons is that you're a person who has been put into this game show and turned into a dice by Lady Luck. Now, it is a game show and there's a fabulous prize, your biggest desire, but let's just say the game show isn't exactly on the up and up. This is Lady Luck we're talking about, and she doesn't necessarily want you to succeed. Oh, I get to choose my starting gear. With the inventor, the starting gear can be rather important because your equipment is always changing, and sometimes you want a piece of equipment as your baseline for your character. So I'll choose the hammer because I want to inflict shock on the enemy. All right, this is Dicey Dungeons. In order to get further and further into the dungeon, I have to get to the exit. But sometimes you may not want to get to the exit right away. You have treasure that can get you new equipment, such as this new equipment I got off screen, this scrap spear. And that will give you a little bit more flexibility with your character to build it to deal with these enemies in question. So let's deal with this slime, because I really do want that equipment up there. Now, battles are simple. You start by rolling dice, and you place that dice on the field here. So, for example, I could do 5 damage if I place this 5 dice on the hammer. But before I do that, I want to use my inventor's special ability. Each character has a special ability, and with the inventor, it's that she gets to use a gadget that she once used for free. And in this case, I get to copy a random dice. Okay, I was hoping that would copy the 5 here so that I could get a little bit more out of it, but them's the roll of the dice, I suppose. But here's the thing. I could use the 5 and the 1 in this spanner to combine to a 6 in order to inflict the status effect of this hammer. And now the enemy is shocked, which is a effect that changes their equipment. We'll use the capacitor there, and we'll see the shocked effect here. Oh, he has to use an extra dice in order to use the slime ball. Which, okay, unfortunately he was able to do, but you know, them's the breaks. That's the roll of the dice. Ooh, do I really want to do 6 damage? Well, let's see. Yes, I was able to get a good roll of the dice. Now I can do 6 damage there, 6 damage there, and the enemy is dead. that literally is the game in question. Figure out how to defeat your enemy without taking critical damage in order to move on. All right, let's re-roll random dice here. Got a 6. Was able to get a little bit lucky, able to shock him. What do I do with this one? I'll actually use this because these abilities combine with each other. This is a countdown card, and this countdown card wants 5 in total. Doesn't have to be in 1 dice, but it could be in like 3 2s or, 1 2 and 3 1s. It depends on what you have available. Sometimes you can go over, but you probably don't because you want to use it on other abilities. So I use it on the Wrecking Ball here, which reduces countdowns, and notice how it's almost like it was applied to the capacitor one. Synergy of your cards and your equipment in this game is vitally important. It's how you get through harder enemies and how you get through these dungeons over and over again in terms of, surviving and being smart about how you use your dice. Because here, okay, I could re-roll a random dice right now, but wait, I already have a 6. I don't want it to touch that. So I'm going to use it, then I'm going to re-roll. But the fact is that I was able to kill him anyway with that 6, so it doesn't matter. At the end of each battle, you get experience and gold. Gold can be used in shops to maybe upgrade your equipment or get new stuff, while experience, levels you up, giving you more health and sometimes more dice. Now, the specific caveat with the inventor here is that at the end of each round, I have to choose a dice, or not a dice, I have to choose a piece of equipment to get rid of that becomes my next gadget. In this case, I like the synergy of these two, so I'm going to get rid of my battle wrench. And I got an extra dice to use in the next level, which is here. But first we're going to get this equipment. Okay, freeze. It's an okay status effect, but let's go down to the next level. Now, this is the bonus round, and I have to choose a rule in order to go to the next floor. I can choose the vacuum, which gives enemies 10% extra health, which could be really, really hard with like super enemies. Or I can go for a random rule change, which could be something great, or it could be something that literally stops my run. 10% extra health I'm willing to deal with, so I'm going to choose that for now. Each of the scenarios have that bonus round where you have to choose the rules, but the rules per character are different for the different episodes, as I mentioned before. Dicey Dungeons is all about strategy. Which enemy do you go after first? I level up in 4 stars, and I know that level 2s will give me 2 stars. So do I go after these 2 first? Well, maybe not necessarily, because what happens if I need health? This health here is going to help me, so maybe I go after this guy first. Or do I avoid him entirely to go to the next level? Well, maybe I don't want to do that because I know the number of enemies in the dungeon. In order to me to get max level for the boss, I need to fight every enemy, which I'm going to do. Now, enemy variety is also a key factor here in terms of how you want to play your strategy. In terms of Sneezy here, let's look at his moves. He likes 1s. He has this ability where it's like, okay, he needs 2 1s, but he does 2x damage. That's 4 damage per hit. For an eventer, that's 1/7 of my health. I probably want to avoid that, especially because of the Sneeze ability. The ability to split a dice into 1s. If he gets a 6, okay, that's 4 damage. That's 4 damage. That's 2, that's 2. That is 12 damage in a turn. That's almost half my health. I want to avoid that at all costs. And luckily, I have a Snowflake, which freezes a dice and turns it into a 1. Well, wait a minute, Dragnix. He wants 1s. He wants 1s here, but he wants a lot of 1s. He only gets 1 dice based on experience, and if I turn that into a 1, he can't split those dice. So, let's freeze the dice. Let's use our other ones here. Might as well just do the 4 damage and take a tick off that one. And notice what happens. Because the frozen ability was there, I was able to minimize his damage. And that's all about strategy. Granted, the first time you go through the game, you won't know that. You won't know that that is an ability of his. But unfortunately for him, I have played through the game several times in all the different scenarios, and it has worked for my advantage. Now, one of the things I really love about Dicey Dungeons is how they took typical JRPG or RPG elements, like status effects, and made them into mechanics into their game. Now, you saw the ability to freeze dice, for example, turning things into 1. But let's take this guy's blind dice here. I'm going to use my gadgets. I'm going to use my wrecking ball, reduce those costs, and I'm going to give him his turn. Oh, okay, so he can do a blind? What's a blind? A blind means I can't see what I rolled on this dice, which can be very, very problematic. Okay, in this turn, yeah, I'm going to do a 6 on this hammer to do the damage. But hold on a second. I can't use the 6 on this. What do I use this on? Do I use it on the capacitor? Do I use it on the wrecking ball? The thing is that I want to maximize this dice's usage. And luckily, it was a dice that was a 4 that I put into the max 4. Sometimes you can get information by putting it into certain slots, but sometimes you're going to be taking a shot in the dark, and you may choose an option that isn't necessarily the best option because you don't have all the information available. That's the breaks. And it is a really cool ability in terms of the different status effects that the game has. Ooh, I gotta take the chainsaw, don't I? I mean, it's a freaking chainsaw. Of course I'm taking it. Now, you're gonna also want to use your resources out of battle wisely. Remember those coins? Well, they're used for shops, and sometimes these shops have equipment that you could really use. A silver dagger does X amount of damage, but if it's odd, get a new dice. That could be really useful for certain scenarios for me. Or I could upgrade my equipment. Yes, equipment can be upgraded. So, for example, I'm going to upgrade... I'm going to upgrade my chainsaw. Yeah, it at that ability of the 6s wouldn't necessarily be the greatest options with the cards I have here. Fact is, that's not a lot of dice to get 2 6s on. But upgrading it so that it's 2 evens? Whew, that's really, really effective, so I'm going to upgrade it. And you can upgrade the right cards in the right scenarios to create a character that's very unique to the run and takes advantage of shield damage or does a shit ton of poison damage. The builds that you can do with the different characters, even though that some characters already have presets that you want to do certain things with, you can really get creative with the different equipment and abilities that the game throws at you. Ooh, hold on a second. 6, 12, and it does double damage at their full HP. Look at that. Look at all the damage I did because I was able to do that chainsaw ability. Granted, it didn't need an upgrade, but that's completely besides the point. All right, shifting gears here for a second. Each character has their own unique ability, but they also play the game a little bit differently. Now, the base gameplay of the Eventer is similar to the Warrior, which has the skill of re-rolling a dice so that you can maximize your attacks. But the Thief, for example, yeah, you're rolling dice, but he's focused on little small stabby attacks that focus on doing poison or repeatedly splitting dices into, 3 or 4 ones that all end up stabbing the victim over and over again. But then you get something like the Robot. The Robot has this gauge on the side, and as you roll dice, that gauge increases. If you fill up the gauge without going over, you end up getting this jackpot attack where you can recover health, do a massive attack, or roll another dice. If you go over, however, your turn is over, and you really can't do anything other than, just end your turn. But then you have another character like the Witch, where you actually roll dice to determine the spells on the field that you place. Now, you could put the dice and roll again on the next turns into those spells, but you do have to sacrifice a little bit of time to put the spells on the field that you want, and sometimes you need to change it up. Maybe one of the spells get weaker as the battle goes on. Maybe it's a dice that gets you more dice. It's a really, really interesting variant of the dice system that adds a lot of variety and overall just fun to the gameplay, especially because each of these characters have their own scenarios, have their own little rules that alter their gameplay. All right, in addition, let's talk a little bit about the presentation. Let's first listen to the music here because the music is fantastic. Take a listen. Pretty fantastic, huh? And the thing is that most of the soundtrack is like that. I really can't think of one song in this entire collection that I wasn't like, oh, it's appropriate for the fight, or isn't something that I want to listen to again. It is really rare where the entire soundtrack is so encompassing of the game itself, where it's just like, it feels like if you took the soundtrack out of Dicey Dungeons, the game would be completely different. And I am rather impressed that almost at every turn in random fights, mind you, the soundtrack was one of the stars of the presentation. With a great presentation and color scheme and line work on top of it. The fact is that these enemies, with some of the small animations and the movement and some of the designs with like the dice, are pretty impressive. There's nothing here where I want to sit there and go, yeah, no, that needs to change, or it was obvious that it was a strategy game because unfortunately it just didn't do enough with the presentation. No, they put a lot into this presentation and it shows almost at every corner. Even the small things like the fire on this dice, where, yeah, when you look at the effect by itself, it may not necessarily be that impressive, but it fits the universe and it really does get the information across that, oh, this dice is on fire, I probably shouldn't use it unless if I really need to. And UI elements are pretty clean, pretty easy to see. Even like the design of the cards really are impressive. Like the upgraded chainsaw here with the little banner on top of it showing you that, hey, this is a little bit more fancy than the other ones around it, even beyond the plus. That's a nice touch. When you have a restriction on a dice, having those little lines on there, all that visual information really plays a part into improving the game's overall usefulness and ease of a new player coming in and understanding everything right away. Now, there is one little strange element to the game that I want to point out. And this has to do with, well, what I consider to be a little bit underhanded tactics in terms of trying to exploit the game. So let's go into the snowman fight. I know that this fight is going to be a problem because I already have half health, and I really don't have the tools to deal with this snowman. Okay, I can do 20 to him right away. I can zap him. I could maybe get a bit of damage out of him here, but I don't really want to use that fire. I don't want to take the health damage, so okay. Got half his health down. Ooh, okay, this is actually working out well. He's able to do 7 damage to me, or 8 damage to me. He throws 2 of my dice, but I'm really low in terms of health. I don't think I'm going to be able to win this fight. I can run, but really I've never seen a scenario that you really want to run in this game. So I can use a trick. I can go back to the title screen because it doesn't save until a fight is over, which is okay. Some of these roguelikes have that element where it's like, okay, you can exploit the game. But what's weird about it is, let me start the fight again for you. All right, Snowman is weak to fire. Notice my dice. It's the same dice I had at the start of the first fight. It seems to pre-roll the dice and keep it in memory, possibly to deal with scenarios like this where you try to, exploit the game. But there's a catch to that. So let me do that turn again. Look at his dice. His dice is a little bit different this time. And that's weird. It doesn't predetermine their dice, but it predetermines your dice. Strange. Now, the dice roll in the second time was different in this case, which, again, okay, so it re-rolled the first one, but didn't re-roll the second. So there is a little bit of variance, but the game does try to stop you from exploiting some of its you know what? I'm not going to try to say it because, well, you can see that I'm having trouble here. It's strange elements. All right, let's try the final battle in my run here. This is the boss. Boss usually is a hard hitter, and in this case, our boss here is the knight, the shield knight, which is able to do a lot of defense in terms of her abilities, aka she's able to add a lot of shield to protect herself from damage, but then use that shield to do massive damage to me. So I really need to end this fight quickly. Now, here's the thing. I do have abilities here that could really help me, but I gotta be careful. Max 5 on this Polar Star means I can do 10 damage, but in order for me to use the chainsaw effectively, I really need to use evens, but I really want the 6. And I could change my things to a 6, but there's a lot of abilities here. There's a lot of choices in terms of how I want to go and do things. Let me hope that I get... No, I didn't get the 6s. Okay, that's fine. Alright, I guess I'm going 6-2. And then 5. And then do the static shock. And then I guess 2 damage there, 1 damage there. And let's hope that's enough. Oh boy. 10 shield. She's gonna do me 14 damage there. 3 damage there. I am already hurting. And she's got 10 shield, so it's like there's 14 or 40 HP at this point. Alright, let's see what I can do. That's unavailable, that's fine. Let's duplicate the dice. Hope for the best. 12, I can do 18, 23, or 19. Let's get that shield down. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this, am I? Let's hope I don't take enough damage. She got the 6s. That's going to be enough. And my run will fail. Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, I could exit right now and do the title thing, but unfortunately, I'm going to be honorable in this case. The inventor was defeated. And thus, that's a run of Dicey Dungeons. But there's a couple more points that I want to make. The thing about Dicey Dungeons is that when I talk about variety, I'm talking about the different styles of gameplay, and even within the same scenario, how your strategy may evolve and change. You can't focus on one specific strategy, especially with these enemy types, because you could end up really screwing yourself in terms of health, in terms of just the longevity of your run. And that's what I love about the game. It forces you to really look at every scenario that you are in and really find the best solution in order to get through it. Now, luckily, it doesn't necessarily mean that you always have to get the right solution. The game is a little lenient in that because of the randomization portion and because, well, it does want you to succeed a little bit. But it's in that area where it's challenging enough where you're going to have to do runs 3 or 4 times. In some scenarios, 8 or 9 times. But it never feels like it is unattainable. It feels like it's just out of reach and it's just right there for you to grab, but you just need to put in a little more effort in order to get it. The funny thing is, the biggest complaint I have about Dicey Dungeons is a technical one. It's the fact that when I launch the game, even though I've told it full screen, sometimes it just decides to go to windowed mode. That's literally the worst complaint I have about the game, and that should say something, although, to be honest with you, I did have problems with saved games early on with the experience. With that said, I also had it with other games, and I think it had something to do with my system at the time, because I had the same problem with Eagle Island and other games that I had just installed. I don't know if it was Steam, I don't know if I had done something in terms of permissions, but that's besides the point. Actually, hold on a second, there is actually another issue. Some of the rules in the game do end up breaking at times, and they're little ones, like if I win a fight and I actually have 0 health because I was poisoned and I ended up going under health, but so did the enemy. Or, you know, hitting the enemy with thorns and both of us going down at the same time. That can lead to scenarios where the game almost breaks. And while, yes, it is annoying at times, the response in terms of a fix for a bug is relatively quick from what I've seen, so I wouldn't hold that against the game. One other note that I want to end with before my final verdict. The game does have mod support, but it's in a very, very beta form. The fact is that it isn't integrated with Steam Workshop, and the tools that are available aren't necessarily easy to work with, at least from what I've seen from discussions out there. There is a lot of work being put into it, but the fact that there may be mods for this game should get you excited. I mean, there's a lot here in terms of the hours. I mean, just look at the time that I put into this review, but to add more to it and to add maybe custom scenarios and custom cards, wow, that could take this game to a, I don't want to really say this, but a Binding of Isaac level. In the end, Dicey Dungeons was a game that no one was talking about up to its release, at least from what I've seen. And quite frankly, more people should be talking about it now, especially considering the history of the creator of VVVV and Super Hexagon. His focus on simple gameplay yet complex depth is really appreciated here, and it's all packaged with a cute yet functional presentation and a soundtrack that is absolutely fantastic. Not many games on this channel get that must-buy status, but Dicey Dungeons has earned it in spades, and comes in at a 94 out of 100, making it a must-buy, even if you're hurting for cash. Now, that doesn't include my enhancer system, which takes the more subjective elements of reviews and puts them into a scoring system to match the game to you. If you fall into one of the following categories strongly, add or subtract that score to the main score of the game. If the first digit of your score changes, refer to this chart or the description below in order to see where the game lies on the buyability rating for you. Before you say anything, yes, a game can go over the 100-point scale because, well, you're still a must-buy there. It's just a little bit better. There will be a brief period where I won't be doing content starting on Wednesday of this week, or actually Thursday, I should say, because I will be vacationing to Florida and visiting my girlfriend. Yes, I am still looking for a job down there. It's been, let's just say, not exactly the greatest of luck. But when I come back, I will be doing things a bit differently. I have been hinting at it, and if you want to see a little bit of what is to come, check the description below for the Discord, because I will be sharing information in the Discord in the coming days. Now, I did say that Seabed would have been my next review, and it just so happens that I got addicted to Dicey Dungeons, therefore I did a video on that first. Seabed will be the next review. Anyway, this is Dragnix signing out, and as always, keep on gaming.